We will have two presentations this evening, both about Iowa's water resources. First, we will discuss rivers and streams with Iowa DNR Rivers and Stream Research Biologist Greg Gelwicks. Then we'll take a short stretch break and we'll return to speak with George Antonio and Mike McGee, also from the Iowa Department of Resources, about Iowa's lakes and other standing waters. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Greg.
Thanks, Marcy. Today in my presentation, I'd like to present some basic concepts that are important to understanding streams in general, and then I will talk some about some of the changes that have occurred in Iowa that affect our stream resources, as well as some of the tools that we have to deal with those changes and minimize some of the impacts. There are 5 components to healthy streams, and one of the links that I provided is the Healthy Rivers, a water course that was developed by the Minnesota DNR, and it can provide a lot more background information and additional information on these components. I'm just going to go through some of the highlights of it, and I encourage you to visit the Healthy River site for more information. And you'll find as we go through them that these different components are all interacting with one another, and it starts to give you appreciation for the diversity and complexity of stream systems. Oh, and these components are the hydrology or flow of the river, geomorphology or the shape of the river, the connectivity, which deals with connections and between upstream and downstream areas, between the stream and its floodplain, and the stream and groundwater. And then water quality and biology. Hydrology can be defined as the distribution and movement of water through a stream and its floodplains and tributaries. And there's many factors I've listed here that affect the hydrology of a stream, including geology, soil, climate, precipitation, vegetation, transpiration, evaporation, and land use. And the basics of hydrology begin with a water cycle, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this. And what I'd like you to focus on here is how important watersheds are to the condition of the stream. As you can see, water falls to the ground as precipitation, and then the condition of the watershed that it falls on, it has a large part in determining how the water gets to the stream, whether it's through surface runoff or through groundwater, and how fast water moves to the stream, and what comes with the water that is moving to the stream. One important thing to understanding watersheds is the way I like to describe it to people is since water runs downhill, if you're standing in a stream, everything that's uphill of that point is the watershed of that point in the stream. And as you move downstream, the watershed gets larger. As you move upstream, it gets smaller. The next topic is geomorphology, or the shape of a stream, and this deals with why a stream looks the way it does. The characteristic size and shape of a stream channel is determined by water flow through the channel, both the amount and the gradient of the stream. And then it's also determined by the sediment that's transported by the stream both the amount of sediment that flows down the stream and also the size of that sediment. And these factors are dictated by the geology and soil types and the topography of the watershed and also the vegetation cover in the watershed. And there's three principal factors that are responsible for creating Iowa's landscapes as we see them. And those are the bedrock geology, the glacial history, and the recent drainage development that has occurred since glaciation. And that gives rise to differences we see in different parts of the state. On the Des Moines lobe is the most recently glaciated portion of the state, and this area of the state has not developed its drainage networks to the degree that other parts of the state have, and was dominated by wetlands. And a lot of the stream channels that are now there are the result of man draining the land and draining the wetlands. And there's a lot of unnatural stream channels there. The Paleozoic plateau has been unglaciated for the longest period and has well-developed drainage networks as well as a lot of bedrock close to the surface and a karst topography that leads to a lot of water going into the groundwater and then re-emerging as springs, and that's what gives rise to a lot of our trout streams in northeast Iowa. The Iowan surface is rolling hills. It's more recently glaciated than the Paleozoic plateau, but not as recently as the Des Moines lobe. And these streams also have bedrock close to the surface and well-drained soils, and also have some spring flow in these streams. The southern Iowa drift plain, in contrast, has well-developed drainage networks, but it also has a lot of clay content to the soils, and the effect that has on streams that differentiates it from some of the northern landform regions. When we get a lot of rainfall, streams to the north tend to get muddy for shorter period of time and then clear up, whereas streams with a lot of clay content in the watershed tend to stay muddy for long periods of time after high flow events. Some other differences: the streams in the northern part of the state tend to be wider and shallower, while streams in the southern part seem to be deeper and somewhat narrower. But wherever you're at, there's some basic principles that streams obey. They are in what we call dynamic equilibrium, where the sediment load that's coming into a stream, that's being carried by a stream, as well as sediment size, is balanced with the energy of the stream, being the stream slope and the stream discharge or flow through the stream. And this is what gives rise to the characteristic meandering pattern of healthy streams, where you have deeper outside bends with shallow point bars and shallow crossovers between these pools. And this balance is achieved through erosion that occurs on the outside of the bends and deposition that occurs on the inside on the point bar. When any of these factors are altered, these variables such as stream flow, stream slope, sediment load, and sediment size in a watershed, that can create instability in the stream. And the stream will adjust to stay in equilibrium. And the degree that the stream adjusts depends on the amount of alteration and the sensitivity of the system. And this is an example of a stream that has accelerated lateral migration. And this is an example of a stream that's out of balance and cannot carry the amount of sediment that is being supplied to the system. The next component is stream connectivity, and this is the flow and exchange and pathways that move organisms, energy, and matter through a stream system. Longitudinal connectivity is the movement of water, sediment, and organic material from headwaters downstream to the mouth of the stream. And it also is the pathway by which organisms can move either upstream or downstream in the system. And you'll see many changes as you move from upstream to downstream in our rivers. You'll see changes in the width, depth, and velocity. They increase as you go downstream. You'll have an increase in woody cover both instream and on the banks. You'll see more cut eroding banks as you move downstream. And there's less variation in the velocity and also in the substrate with smaller substrates such as sand as you move downstream will be becoming dominant, with more of the larger substrates such as gravels and cobble in the upper reaches. And this gives rise to the need for organisms such as fish to migrate within these streams to utilize different habitats that are available in different parts of the stream. A lot of people don't realize that freshwater fish migrate, but there's many reasons why they need to. One of them is to recolonize stream areas after disturbance, and these disturbances can be drought, severe winters, catastrophic events that can cause fish to need to either die out in the area and need to recolonize it, or to move downstream to avoid these harsh conditions. And fish also have differing needs throughout their life cycles and throughout the year that make it necessary for them to move up and downstream. And this is just an example from Iowa. Some of the research that we've done several studies that have shown the importance of migration of fish in Iowa streams. And this one has to do with channel catfish in the Turkey River. And we radio tag channel catfish downstream of the lowermost dam at El Cater. And we followed their movements throughout the year through a 3-year period. And one of our interesting findings was these fish remained in areas near where they were tagged in spring, summer, and into the fall. But every fall, all of our channel catfish each year moved downstream to the Mississippi River to overwinter, and they'd spend the winter there before returning in the spring. And this was due to a lack of deep overwintering habitat in the turkey, and it made it, this migration allowed them to utilize habitats that were available during spring, summer, and fall, and then they'd move downstream to access overwintering areas. Upstream of the dam at El Cater, there isn't a measurable channel catfish population. Moving on to lateral connectivity, this is a movement of water, sediment, and organic matter and organisms between the main channel and the floodplain. When most people think of streams, they think of something like this, the channel of the stream winding through the landscape. But periodically, streams look like this, and more so in recent years than in the past. And during these flood periods, the stream spreads out, and is the conditions that are on the floodplain and the riparian area on the edge of the stream have a direct impact on the quality of the stream. Some of the functions that are of the floodplain are that they serve as storage areas for both water and sediment, and they also dissipate energy of flood flows by allowing the water to spread out, and also roughness of vegetation in the floodplain helps slow the water down. And they're also sources of organic matter to the stream. And this is important because the periodic wetting and drying of floodplain habitats uh, makes floodplain water bodies more productive than purely terrestrial or purely aquatic.